Hey guys, Level Cap here. Today we've got a ton of new information for Battlefield 5, primarily focusing on the Tides of War and what we can expect for post-launch content. We got a bit of a dev blog last week telling us a bunch about that, and today we're getting a dev talk that clarifies a lot more information and actually gives us some specifics and even some new gameplay showing off the new PanzerStorm map. Now, first of all, the developers wanted to clarify that the Tides of War was going to introduce many new weapons. Even Overture is going to have new weapons added to the game. So, despite having what some might call a limited selection of weapons at launch for Battlefield 5, many new guns will be coming within the first months of launch and many more in the following months. One of which is the Vickers MMG, medium machine gun. That means that this machine gun will not have the aiming down sight capability when running around, but it will be one of the more powerful machine guns that when bipoded will be accurate and can shoot through a lot of materials. The medium machine guns shoot higher caliber rounds. They can penetrate more materials and do massive damage and even take down sandbags and stuff like that. So we saw teases of the Vickers and certain screen grabs and stuff like that. People figured it was going to be in the game, but then it wasn't listed as a launch weapon. This gun will be coming as part of the Overture content within the first few months. Now, they also gave us some examples of the Tides of War assignments that we can complete to unlock some of these in-game rewards or new weapons and stuff like that. They're very simple. Some of them are even as basic as capturing 2 points or like capturing 3 points in a ground vehicle. Simple, straightforward stuff. And there's multiple paths you can take depending on your playstyle or what kind of things you like to do primarily in the game. So it seems like it'll be pretty accessible to everyone there. We do see that the final rewards that you get from completing one of these chapter progression systems is the Madsen machine gun. So the Bren is also listed here as a reward. I'm not sure if the Bren's going to be exclusively unlockable only through a chapter reward or if you'll be able to get it through another in-game system, but the Madsen was not listed as a launch weapon before, so we know that we'll be getting the Madsen probably in Overture as well. This is another recycled weapon from Battlefield 1. It was probably used in World War II to some extent, but yeah, not as exciting of a new weapon compared to something that might be brand new, but it's still coming. Now, if you look at the screen, you'll also notice that the rewards here are given for the first stage or stage 0 of the rewards, and there could be up to 12 stages here, or I guess 13 if you count 0. So that means we'll be getting more rewards, I think, just in the Overture chapter itself, unless these rewards are signaling different chapters down the road. But I think it is all within the Overture chapter. So if you're thinking, oh, 2 guns and like a scope skin seem like kind of lame rewards for a giant chapter, it seems like it's just the first phase of this chapter. So it does seem like there's going to be a significant amount of rewards here, and we'll just have to see how many guns we're getting per chapter. Now, we also get our first glimpse at the practice range for Battlefield 5, and it looks kind of cool, I have to admit. I like that they built it up very thematically for World War II. The technology seems to be in line with what they might have had in that time period, and it looks like they'll have a bunch of different ways to sort of practice your shooting. The developers mentioned it as a useful place to test out different upgrade paths for your weapons to figure out which upgrade tree you might like the best, you know, and work on recoil control and other things like that with your guns and potentially vehicles. It seems like it could be a much more elaborate practice range than we had in Battlefield 4, with more tools and maybe more ways to sort of practice and work on your aim, which would be very cool. You know, these things exist in like Counter-Strike, where players have very elaborate shooting ranges to really work on recoil control and other aspects of their gameplay, and they're very useful for honing in your skills. So hopefully that kind of stuff is incorporated in Battlefield 5 as well. We also got our first glimpse and a little bit of info about the new map PanzerStorm. That is going to be a very large vehicle-oriented map. There's going to be 7 vehicle slots on each team, so that would be ground vehicles, I imagine. So potentially 7 tanks versus 7 other tanks, 14 tanks on the battlefield at a time. Potentially more if you factor in the squad reinforcements reinforcement system, so a very armor heavy, vehicle heavy map. It's supposed to be huge as well. It does remind me a bit of Twisted Steel in at first glance, but again, this is a very limited capture of what we're seeing right here. So I'm very curious to see a bit more about this map, and I like that they're putting in the bigger vehicle-oriented map. Even though I tend not to focus on those, they are a bit of fun, and I know that there's a big part of the community that really likes focusing on that specifically. Now, unfortunately, there really weren't too many more specifics in the dev talk. It was all kind of rehashes or basic overview information of the Tides of War and whatnot, but apparently there's a bunch more dev talks that have already been recorded and are in the works, so I think we'll be getting a bit more info. I mean, we've been getting a ton of info about Battlefield 5. Basically, they've told us everything that's going to be in the launch game and all the weapons, everything in as much detail as they could possibly give us without showing it all to us. So there's only a little bit of time between now and the premiere launch of the game. There's like 3 different launch schedules of the game. If you missed that graphic that they posted last week, it's very confusing, and people are already making fun of how overly complicated the launch schedule is for Battlefield 5. I agree. I think it's stupid. I think they should stop having all these like, oh, if you pre-order it, you get it here. If you have the Premier account, you get it here. If you have this version of that, you know, it's like just launch the game for everybody on the same day. It's not that big a deal. Have some skin bonuses for somebody who pre-orders or gets the deluxe edition or some crap, but let everyone play on the same day and stop confusing everybody. Obviously, I will be getting it on the premiere date, which is the 9th. But they did also just release a Twitter video showing off the new revive icons. So basically, if you're a medic running around, I think it might actually also apply to just teammates who can revive their squad mates. If you are requesting a revive after you've been shot and are downed, your circle will get bigger and kind of blink a little bit and be more highlighted to other players. So maybe that'll attract their attention a bit more. If you haven't selected bleed out or come revive me, it'll be just a normal revive icon. And then if you try and bleed out, your icon will practically disappear so people can't see it. And so these are just different ways to try and signal other players to your revive status a bit more. I don't know how much it's going to change the overall revive gameplay in terms of whether or not players are going for you and trying to get revives. I definitely like to see a bit more color integrated into it, you know, change colors or hues a little bit to sort of attract people more to like who really wants a revive. I think that would be a good indicator, but we'll have to see. They definitely are trying to sort of keep the UI minimal and as uninvasive as possible. So we'll see what they do overall. Now, also confirmed on Twitter by David Serlin, this was something that was actually suspected for a while, but they've confirmed that team switching will no longer be an available option in Battlefield 5. This is to prevent people from switching to the winning team at the last second or just trying to get onto the winning team at any point during the round. Basically to try and encourage people to stick with their team and fight it out. There are some pros and cons to this. The big con that I see initially is that if you're trying to work on a new vehicle unlock, since the vehicles are now asymmetrical, and you say just bought a whole bunch of upgrade paths for your Tiger tank, and it spawns you on the allied side, that might kind of suck, because you're like, okay, I really want to test out my new BF-109 loadout. Oh, I'm not on the German side. Okay, let's play the next round. Oh, I'm still not on the German side. Oh, I'm still not. Like, if you can't switch teams, it might suck for the vehicle stuff and trying to progress and rank up certain vehicles. Some players also like to play against each other. I think this is probably a small percentage of the community, but I definitely had a few YouTube shows where Matimi and I would face off against each other, and if this becomes an issue where it's hard for us to actually join on the opposing teams, that'll suck for playing the game in a specific way, where you might want to like 1v1 me, bro. Like, if that's not possible in Battlefield 5, or it's hard to set up, that could be a little bit of an issue. So again, there's pros and cons to this system. Not allowing players to switch teams might actually bring more cons than pros to the game. We'll just have to wait and see in the long run. Overall, I gotta say, it does seem like the more we find out about what's going to be included in Tides of War, the cooler it seems. You know, obviously it's replacing the new premium pass. There was probably more content in the premium version of Battlefield, but now they're not separating the community by having some of the content locked behind a paywall and being less accessible overall. Even if you were a premium member, the modes often would die off pretty quick. So I do still think that the way they've decided to go with the Tides of War instead of doing premium is probably going to be better overall for the game's health. But again, that's something we'll just have to wait and see. What do you guys think? Do you think ditching the premium model for the Tides of War model has been an improvement overall? Do you think it'll make the game more accessible, even if it does mean slightly less content in the short term? It could mean more content in the long term if the Tides of War model is really successful and it ends up generating more money than premium. So again, pros and cons, it's all a big experiment with Battlefield 5, and we'll have to wait and see. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.